Writeopolis, we're not just gonna kid, it's Writeopolis, we're not just gonna kid, yeah. Welcome to Writeopolis, featuring authors RJ Barker, Scott K. Andrews and Kid Power, and, often, a guest. Writeopolis is recorded live via Discord on alternating Sunday evenings, a conversational show with audience participation, bark on without the BS. Funded entirely through the generosity of our Patreon backers. Patreon.com/Writeopolis Podcast. Writeopolis, we're not just gonna kid, it's Writeopolis, we're not just gonna kid, yeah.
Did it work? I don't know if it worked. It did, yes, it's working. Right, we're recording now. Welcome to Writeopolis. Scott has just vanished for a moment to do important presenter things that no doubt we'll find about later. I was on holiday last time, so I don't know what went on. And I'm back, but this time Kit is on holiday, for which we're all obviously very grateful. And we've got lovely Stephen Deas here, who is in some way responsible for me, but no doubt we will get to that at some point. You can send hate mail and stuff later on. But do you just want, because you're not just Stephen Deas, you're a number of Stephens and other things. Do you just want to tell us a bit about you, Stephen? Oh, and I can't hear anything. Have we lost Stephen again?
I think we might have.
Oh, we might have to postpone tonight. we might just have a bit of a chat.
RJ, did you just claim that Stephen was your father?
No, I said that Stephen is to some way. Yeah, I can see how you would think that. I should have worded that better. But let's just let's see. We cannot. You can. We are going to get so much stick off Kit.
We are. I mean, I could just sit here and sing all the songs from Bo Burnham's latest comedy special because I've been listening to it on loop on Spotify for the last 3 days, and I know the whole thing. So,
no, don't do that because I know nothing about this apart from I've heard people mention it.
Okay.
So I take it I should be listening to that
Disney song
at some point.
I don't know any Disney songs fully all the way through. I could do songs from My Fair Lady.
I don't think
Stephen can hear us, or if he can, we can't hear him.
I've said we have to rearrange, Stephen. It might just be you and me having a bit of a chat, Scott.
That's
which
fine.
is nice, and we'll get the Writeopolians involved because we can always have guests back.
Hello.
We're good at that.
Hey!
Yay! Did you go and get a cup of tea, Stephen?
You're like Schrodinger's guest, Stephen. We're never quite sure if you're here or not.
No, I appear to be stuck with a tinny, horrible phone connection.
You sound fine to us.
Well, that's all right then.
Yeah, you don't sound horrid to us because usually Kit, we've told Kit off in the past for sounding horrid. That's nothing to do with his mic.
That's just Kit.
Just Kit. But anyway, let's just rewind a bit. I was going to say that you are to some way responsible for me being published. You may not want to own up to that. I don't know. But and also that you're a multifaceted author, and I was just giving you the opportunity to tell us a bit about you when you vanished. So I'll give you that opportunity again, Stephen. Get to it.
Oh, talk about me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just this guy, you know.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I know. What do you want to know? You want to know about books or just everything?
There's not just Stephen Deas, is there? You publish under.
I'm slowly losing count of the number of pseudonyms. So I started off writing fantasy and published under my own name, and I'm back to doing that now. And then I took a detour into slightly different fantasy, which apparently meant having a more macho sounding name because it was more macho kind of fantasy, I suppose. I don't know. the mysteries of publishing elude me frequently, even now.
What was your macho name?
So my macho name was Nathan Hawke,
Nathan
which
Hawke.
unfortunately turned out to be the name of a New Zealand porn star, but it was too late by the time we found that out.
Was he a very macho porn star?
I didn't investigate too carefully for fear of what I might find.
And you've done historic as well?
Yeah, I did a couple of historical fiction novels under the cunning pseudonym of S.J. Deas. Very cunning, because J is not my middle initial, and that was a copy editing typo, believe it or not. So they put the name on every single page in the book, and no one noticed that they got the initial wrong. It was right on the cover to begin with. No one noticed they got the initial wrong until the proofreading stage. And then everyone was, oh, God, do we have to change every single page? Can't we just change your middle initial on the cover? It'd be so much easier. Oh, all right, then. So, yeah, I know what my middle name is. I come up with, invent a middle name beginning with J. Julian, I don't know. Justin.
Julian's quite posh.
Jimmy, maybe it's a Jimmy, I don't know.
Suits history. And you've done straight crime, haven't you, as well?
Well, yeah, kind of. It's a sort of... it's a kind of girl on the train kind of domestic crime under the name S.K. Sharp. That was the last book that came out before the Moonsteel Crown. That was quite an interesting deviation from my normal stuff, yeah. And then sci-fi books under the name Sam Peters, and then a couple. I don't know whether you've ever had Mr. Smith on this before, but Gavin Smith and I wrote a couple of sci-fi novels together under the cunning pseudonym of Gavin Deas, which I'm sure it was shocked everyone to find out who we really were.
We're having Gavin on at a later date. We've got him lined
Oh, I'm
up.
sorry.
So you've kind of ruined that for him now. But
well, that's part of my reason for existing, is ruining things for Gavin, surely.
And you also wrote some Bulldog Drummond novellas. I was actually trying to track one down once I found that out, but I couldn't find them online.
Right. Yes. Okay. So, yeah. What happened there was this was a new publishing company. They seemed to be. I think they were new. They were certainly trying to do a new thing. Who thought it would be a great idea to wake up a lot of public domain old properties and produce some more material for them. I don't know what else they did, to be honest. But Bulldog Drummond was one of them. So they commissioned 3 novellas, published one of them, and then went bust. So
that's a shame, because
never even came out, and the third one isn't available anymore.
No, it isn't. So if they're public domain, you can self-publish them. Go on.
Well, there's been some toing and froing, but actually, yes, we have now established that the rights have reverted, and I can indeed self-publish them, and that is the plan when I pull my finger out to actually do it.
That's very much up Scott's alley.
I mean, that's a terrific business. That's a great idea. A little publisher doing monthly novellas for public domain characters. That would be absolutely fantastic. How would you go bust doing? Yes, tempted.
I think their fundamental problem was not telling anyone that any of this existed.
That could be that. Yeah,
that is a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah. Anyway, we have. You see, I have always pronounced your surname as Deas. I didn't know it was Deas. So it's kind of discombobulated me now. So I'm just going to carry on calling you Stephen Deas, because that's what you are in my head.
So many of my teachers at school did that. I'll feel right at home.
Get to the back of the room, Deas. Go on. We usually sort of ease into Writeopolis by talking about the media we've been consuming over the past lifetime, or 2 weeks for us. we do this two weekly. Yesterday I had a fantastic day because I rewatched My Cousin Vinny with my son and my wife, and it's a superb film and very, very sweary, which my 11-year-old son didn't agree with. He was, why are these people so rude? And well, I started watching Army of the Dead. Have you bothered with that? I got bored.
Yeah, I saw that.
Was that the John? That's a new one. The John Batista.
Yes.
John
Yeah.
Dave Batista.
Dave,
Not
Dave.
John.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm thinking of John Paul Baptist or John the Baptist. I don't know. Help. Yeah, Dave Bautista. Him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I saw somebody saying that it might even have been Alistair Stewart, who was wonderful, saying that Dave Bautista showed his acting chops. Now, I did not notice that if it happened.
It does. It did seem to me to be the first movie in which I've actually been aware of him acting, not acting a human person. I thought he was quite good in it. But the movie is a shameless matchup of Day of the Dead and Kelly's Heroes. That's just.
But that sounds good.
And Aliens. It lifts story beats from all three of those and just mashes them up. I kind of enjoyed it, but it does not pretend to be anything it isn't. It is just a very shameless Kelly's Heroes with zombies.
I got really annoyed with it that it sets up this thing with them. All the zombies just stood there because the sun has dried them out, and it says as soon as it rains, they come back to life. And I thought we're going to get a brilliant set piece with that, but they kind of just forgot.
Yeah, they did.
And I was like, and something about it I just found like it wasn't for me. Have you watched it, Stephen?
I did watch it. Yeah, obviously I had to watch it. I was told, "Oh God, here's another zombie movie for you, Steve. Go on, go watch that in the garage." Is literally what I was told. So yeah, I did watch it. I thought, I was quite unmoved by it. I thought there was lots of good special effects thrown at something and it just didn't stick as a story for me.
Yeah, I don't know what it was about. I just really was just like, I think I gave up about 2/3 of the way through and just like, I don't care. I don't care about any of these people and what.
Well, that I think was fundamentally the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think perhaps it tried to set up too many. Tried to do too many things with too many characters, and as a result, none of them worked.
Yeah, I tell you what, I have been watching that I really enjoyed. Didn't expect to. Pacific Rim Black. I watched that with the boy, and it was really good. Really, really well done. And now I've got to watch Pacific Rim with him and sort of explain why that's not quite as good, which would be fun. But yeah, giant robots. But it's a really interesting thing they've done with it.
Can you still hear me, by the way?
Yes, we can hear you, Ken Fandango.
Yes.
Right, I switched over to a different device, which is a lot more comfortable to use, frankly.
Oh, that's good. Oh, look, yeah, Katie Tree said, I don't care about any of these people, which is why I gave up on Game of Thrones. That controversial, although I also gave up on Game of Thrones. Kind of got annoyed with it.
If you gave up on Game of Thrones, then you really missed out on being able to shout a lot about the last season, frankly.
I read a lot of people angry about the fact that she went quite mad in the last season and killed a lot of people. Try not to be too spoiler for anyone that hasn't. But
I still haven't seen it, but I don't think I'm going to because my rule is I wait until the series finishes and then I read enough to get a sense of whether people think it fell to pieces or whether it was good. And if it was good, then I watch it. And if it fell to pieces, I don't bother. So Game of Thrones is one of those shows that got felled in my don't bother.
Yeah.
Understand why people got grumpy about Daenerys and how it all ended for her in the great climax, but that wasn't my big grump. I thought
that was quite clearly telegraphed right from the beginning that she was a tyrant waiting to happen.
It could have gone that way, yeah.
Yeah, I thought I knew that was coming. It wasn't a surprise to me. But
what pissed me off was the entire irrelevance of the whole Night King arc at the end. He could have removed the whole lot, and it would not have mattered.
it was very inconvenient. I struggled with Game of Thrones because I always felt like the books I admire the books for what I think they're very well done, but I feel like I am being set up constantly to like a character so that it can be killed to get that emotional payoff. So by about book 3, I just wasn't invested in anybody because it was just that, well, look, they're all going to die. I don't care. And so I just kind of sort of petered off. But I'm rubbish at that. Kit loves stuff like that, and Scott does a bit. Don't you like?
Yeah, I can take a good downbeat ending as long as they don't overdo it.
Yeah, I like jolly, which is right. You don't get much jolly, and despite the fact I don't write jolly, but I do like jolly in one. What's the best thing you've watched recently, Stephen?
Very, very recently, this morning, I started to watch another zombie series called Black Summer, which I'd never come across until 7 o'clock this morning, when I had a lot of time to kill and nothing else to do. And that was really rather good. I haven't seen very much of it yet, so God knows where it goes. But it was a bit different, and yeah, I rather like that.
I've not even heard of that.
What's that on?
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
Because Scott likes a zombie. I don't usually do zombies. I find them quite unpleasant. But that's only meant to. That's the whole point of it. But I'm kind of... I don't mind.
I don't mind a zombie.
Yeah.
I did bail on Walking Dead because there came a point, I think, midway through season 3 it was. I just felt this is so depressing. It's not improving my day. I need to do something else.
Yeah, I never got into The Walking Dead.
Before that, the Mayor of Easttown. I really like that.
Yeah, I watched that in a day. Good, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've not seen. I'm looking forward to that now because it sounds good. Katie Tree has said Loki. Have you all watched the first Loki?
Yes.
No spoilers.
It's terrific.
I thought it was all right. But I think the difference is how much you're invested in Marvel, which I'm not. So I always feel like I need to do some homework to really enjoy this, which is a barrier for me, I've got to admit.
Katie has recommended a zombie film called Sexy Killer. Sounds like the kind of film that would star Nathan Hawke.
Yeah.
Have we heard? Can you tell us more about Sexy Killer, Katie? We've not heard of this. iZombie was quite good.
Oh, I loved iZombie. That was good.
Yeah, I think I got bored. Oh God, I've started watching the last season of Lucifer, and it's awful.
Oh no!
Oh yeah, I have also watched that, and it's brought things to a conclusion. It was better than the last season of Game of Thrones. I'll give you that.
I get really disappointed with stuff like Lucifer, and crime dramas do it as well. Well, I really enjoy the bits where Lucifer is solving crimes. I do not give a toss about the soap opera side of it, and I think I'm not the target audience anymore at that point, and should just have given up.
I
A couple of people are mentioning the Nevers. I really enjoyed that. Right up my street, that was.
Yeah, I used to say to anyone who would listen back when I was Joss Whedon's greatest evangelist, he just needs to be given an HBO show where he can be off network and do what he wants. And when the initial publicity came out, I thought, well, that sounds really generic, and I thought he'd be a bit more ambitious than that. But apparently, halfway through the first season, there's a huge reverse and twist, and it suddenly becomes interesting.
Isn't it Joss Whedon?
Well, not anymore. He was gently removed from the project. I don't know that that's true. He apparently retired because it was just getting a bit much for him. But yeah, internet scuttlebutt is that he was politely asked to exit the building. I don't know if that's true.
Poor.
It's worth saying perhaps that only the first half of the first season is up on whatever channel it is that it's up on. Is it Apple TV? No. It must be Now TV because it's HBO.
Yeah, it's now.
And yes, indeed, there is quite a striking reverse.
Is now TV still owned by the Murdochs?
Well, it's owned by Sky, but I don't think Sky is still owned by the Murdochs.
Oh, I might watch it then, because I've not been watching Now TV because I refuse to give money to the Murdochs.
Yeah, it's not. No. But yeah, Mayor of Easttown. I'm going to second that. Anyone who hasn't seen that, I binged the whole thing in a day because I had a cold, and it is it's absolutely terrific.
Yeah, I'm going to watch that because it sounds like my I do like quite bleak crime dramas. I don't. That seems to get around my rule of not liking bleak and miserable things. But it's like, did you ever watch Hinterland? The thing that was.
I watched the first one, and it didn't pull me in the way I thought it would.
Yeah, it's bleak.
It was really bleak.
Finnish-Russian border one. Or was this the Welsh one?
No, Hinterland was the Welsh one. See, the problem with Hinterland was I always felt like they filmed it twice, you see. They filmed it once in English and once in Welsh. And I, being me, I want to watch the Welsh version with English subtitles. Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist.
The reason I like Hinterland is there's a reused kind of location in it, which looks like an old garage or something, that says a big slogan on it that's clearly part of the advertising of this garage, but it's always short just so it says shit, and the rest of the words are cut out. And then it's just this kind of, that sets up the program for you that everything is basically terrible and there's nothing they can do, and there's these really odd sorts of bleak humour, and I really enjoyed it.
Someone in the chat has mentioned, I think this is Alicia, mentioned Dublin Murders, and Stephen has seconded this.
Oh, I've not seen what is the Dublin Murders?
It's based on the first two of the Dublin Murder Squad novels by Tana French, and I am a passionate Tana French fan. I think she is just one of the best writers in any field working right now. I think her work is incredible. So because I came to it being such a massive fan of the books, I found the decision to mash the two books into one really annoyed me. And so I kind of didn't get on with the TV show. But I imagine if you haven't read the books, it was probably very good.
Who's the star of it? Who's the lead?
It was Killian Scott.
Adamantine lady, you will know the answer to this.
Because I watched a thing set in Ireland. It wasn't the Dublin, it was set in Dublin though, but it was terrible. But I think it's further back. This is quite new, isn't it? The Dublin Murders, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is further back. And the detective in it was just every single stereotype of a detective that you expect. And we just sat and laughed. And that wasn't the effect. Did you watch the recent thing with what's his name? He always plays a bad guy, Irish actor. He was in...
Yeah, no. Sarah Green was the other lead in Dublin Murders, not the children's TV presenter, but the actor.
I watched that. I'm putting in Irish actor, James McAvoy.
He's Scottish.
Oh, it's not him then. No, it's definitely not him. I've just Googled him.
I've heard,
Irish
Katie,
actors.
I've heard that Heavy Trip is terrific.
I've not even heard of...
A Finnish film about a heavy metal band just trying to play a festival.
Oh, I probably like that. Oh, is that the one where they end up in a punk bar?
I don't know.
And it's Nazis?
No, that's Green Door.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Because I really...
With Patrick Stewart as a backwoods Nazi.
Yeah, I keep needing to watch that.
So good. So good.
The actor is, in Line of Duty, the last series.
Adrian Dunbar?
No, it's the guy that was abroad and just ended up as a corpse.
James Nesbitt.
You're
talking about, yes, the thing that he did quite recently where there's a big reveal at the end of episode 1 and it isn't the show you think you're watching.
And it's really, really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just terrible. It was just... I've never ditched a show so quickly. But I can't remember the name of it.
I stuck with it all the way through because I can never... It's very rare for me to bail.
Did it get any better?
No.
Oh.
No, I didn't really.
But anyway, let's come back to book. Sorry,
Season
Steve.
3 of Westworld, which I watched. I don't know how long it's been out. I sort of lost track of Westworld for a while, but I watched season 3 of it a couple of weeks ago, and I found that rather good. Actually, I thought it was really good. I thought it was kind of what Altered Carbon should have been.
I've not watched any of Westworld, but I enjoyed both series of Old Carbon, but I seem to be quite alone in enjoying the second series. Doesn't seem that it did much. But I should watch Westworld because I know I'd like it.
You should watch the first season of Westworld. That's really quite astonishingly good, in my opinion.
I will do that. That will be my watching for next week. Which
It also made Sam Peters very cross.
Which is Sam Peters one of you?
Yeah, Sam Peters is one of me. Sam Peters is a science fiction writer, a science fiction of me who wrote three novels about that were heavily around artificial intelligence and robot, artificial replacements of real people. Just at about the time Westworld came along and did it much better.
Oh dear, yeah, that's awkward.
Talking of books, I've just finished reading all of I'm not going to talk about Bosch, which is rare for me. I'm going to talk about the Lincoln Lawyer books, but also by Michael Connolly, because I can only read Michael Connolly books at the moment. I don't know why, but that's all I'm reading. And the Lincoln Lawyer books are just astounding and do a really odd meta thing. Because you know they made a film with Matthew McConaughey of the Lincoln Lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
It's referenced constantly in the books. And people know him and ask him if there's going to be another film and will Michael McConaughey play him again. And it's a really odd sort of this is and in the very last book, COVID is just starting to come in, and they're so sort of real. It's that I can't recommend them enough. Have you been reading? You've been reading novellas, haven't you?
I've read. Yeah, I started to read a novella a day, and I was going to do it all month. And I got through some really terrific ones. The highlights were the two Molly Southbourne novellas by Tate Thompson. Tarde. Okay.
Yeah, he will tell you off if you call him Ted.
That's okay. I'm happy to be told off. And two books set in Cairo. Okay, you see, now this is a name I don't know how to pronounce. P. Djelly Clark. But those were terrific as well. And a couple by Stephen Gallagher. But then I had to stop because someone asked me to write a novella myself. And so I only got 11 days into my novella a day for a month because I have to now do all the research for the novella I've actually got to write.
But that means you have a lot of books lined up. Taddy Thompson's Making Wolf is also excellent.
I'm going to read everything he's done. Those two were so good. I'm going to read everything. Yeah. I mean, I've interacted with him on Twitter and he seems lovely. So
He is lovely.
I'm going to read everything he's done. But for me, the big thing the art that I consumed this week was this Bo Burnham comedy special on Netflix called Inside, which is incredible. And it's just him in a room for a year, slowly going mad, and doing comedy songs. And it is unlike anything I've ever seen before. It was so amazing. I watched it one night and then I watched the whole thing again the next night because I couldn't quite believe it. It's really, I could talk about that for quite some time, but I would bore everyone readless. But go and watch Inside Bo Burnham on Netflix. You won't regret it.
I will watch that, and we should both tell Kit to watch it, and he won't. And to be rude to him next week. What about you, Stephen? What have you been reading?
Going back a couple of books. The last thing I read was everything Mick Herron ever wrote in rapid succession. I read Slow Horses. Well, not everything he ever wrote, but I've read all 7 Slow Horses books in just back after back, having read the first. Well, actually, I say read. Strictly speaking, I listened to them on Audible. And part of their charm is that the narrator is so perfect for the prose. Particularly for the character of Jackson Lamb. I know at least one of you is familiar with Mick Herron quite
I read them at RJ's insistence, and they're terrific.
So yeah, I read. I went through, I think, all of the Slow Horses novels back to back, which is a lot. It's the first time for a long time where I've done that. I generally try to not do that, but to go and do something else and then come back even to a series I like. But that one, no, I need the next one. I need the next one. I need the next one. Why aren't there any more?
They're just joyous, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
There's a line in the first one. I think it's in the first couple of pages about somebody stopping and pretending to look at their mobile phone, which is indistinguishable from somebody actually looking at their mobile phone. And as soon as I read that, I just thought, you're a genius and I hate you.
Yeah.
It's just one of those observed moments, and you think, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's really obvious, and I've never read it before, and I wish I'd written it.
But the last thing I read / listened to was My Sister the Serial Killer by, and I can't remember her name now.
I'm sure somebody will tell us.
Yeah, that's a Nigerian authoress, and that was quite refreshing because it's quite different from what I normally read. What I found slightly jarring was that it had a character in it called Tade, and I don't know if you've read Rosewater, but it also had a character in it called Femi and a character in it called Taiwo, and I kept on having Rosewater flashbacks. Thank you. Yes.
Lincoln Braithwaite.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah. I might.
But yeah, that was a nice change of pace. That was quite different.
So I might check that out because I wonder if they actually know Tade. They might do because he gets about. We've not arranged to have him on here. I might get him on here and see if he'll tell some of his outrageous stories because he's an absolute terror. Should we move on to what we're working on, Scott? Because you've already kind of started to broach that this will be the first week where you won't be massively wimping out of this bit.
Yes, I have a novella to write. It's a tie-in to a computer game that I wrote late last year, early this year, and it's set in history. I don't think I'm allowed to say what it is because it's not been announced yet, but it is set during the retreat to Dunkirk, and it will be based on an incident that happened to my grandfather. So I'm going to fictionalize that.
Wow.
But I've got a lot of reading to do to make sure that it all hangs together. So, and that's got to be in mid-August, so I've got like 8 weeks to write that.
How long is a novella?
I think if you go over 30,000 words, you get a slap. I think anything between about 15 and 25 is about right. The
I had
first
an email from my agent yesterday who said 30 to 45. Anything under 30 was too short.
Well, that's depressing.
Yeah, I thought having just submitted a novella that was considerably shorter than that.
Yeah,
maybe that's because it's genre.
Well, the novella in my novella list the 11 that I read, one of them was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and that's 16,000, and that's classed as a novella.
But novels and media have got longer, haven't they? Because I wrote a Cozy Crime, and when Agatha Christie was writing that, 50 to 60,000 words is an acceptable novel. But you'd be laughed at now if you tried to hand that in.
I think it's a perfectly acceptable length for a crime novel.
I don't think publishing agrees with you, Scott.
Well, we know what to say to publishing.
No. It does change though, depending on what genre you write. So I don't know what your experience was, RJ, but I was told 80,000 words for a crime novel.
Yeah,
that's like really short for a fantasy or SF novel.
Yeah, I was told 120,000 words is my minimum for a fantasy novel. 90,000 is the sweet spot for a crime novel, and then I may or may not have written a cozy crime novel, and that's 80,000. That's about right for that. But it's all malleable, isn't it? If the book is good enough.
I've never managed to write more than 90,000 words. Every time I've gone into a book, I thought, I'm going to make this a real doorstopper, and I just run out of plot at 80,000. I've just got to wrap it up. I just don't seem to be able to write long books, except when I was writing about Dawson's Creek. That got to 120. So that could be a fantasy novel.
Do you find, Stephen, that your mind does it automatically? Because my fantasy novels run long, and I don't know why. And RJ Dark writes, and they run to about 80 or 90,000. And there's no planning involved. It's just how they. I'd quite like to write a much shorter fantasy novel. Just
What was the question?
do you find that you do it automatically, the lengths of things, or do you have to?
Well, yes and no. I find that I have a good feel for how long a story is going to be before I sit down and write it. But I haven't got much authority over over what the story is going to be. I mean, that sounds stupid since I am literally the author. But I'll sit down and go, okay, this is a story I want to write, and then I'll go, that's about 250,000 words. Are you sure you want to write it? And it was. And I usually know how long it's going to be, but not how to make it shorter.
I honestly think if I had an idea and thought, well, that's going to be about 250,000 words, I'd just go no and do something else because I'm really lazy. I would recommend
that approach. I wrote 4 novels in that year, and one of them was 250,000 words, and that kind of broke me.
That's madness.
Wow.
How did you do that?
By not doing anything else.
How much is that a day were you doing to do 250,000 words?
Well, it's difficult to pin it down exactly because they came out in the same year. That was Dragon Queen, which is the longest novel I've done, and all 3 Nathan Hawke books, which were going to be released. The idea was to release them kind of back to back at like 2 or 3 month intervals. So they all came out in the same year, which meant they'd all basically been written in about the same over about a year, but about a year previously. How many words? Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that one of the Nathan Hawke books was written in the first draft of it. So that 100,000 words was done in a month to see whether I could. There was a lot wrong with that first draft, and a lot of rewriting happened, but that's always the case. So yeah, that was like 5,000 words a day every single day, and that was A, really hard, and B, not a terribly good idea.
Did you chop and change, or did you do one until it was finished and then do the next one?
I like to have more than one project going so that I can chop and change. So I won't drop from one project until I finished a draft, but then please, can I do something else? So yeah, I'll do a draft of one thing and then I'll go away and do something else for a bit to try and get my head away from the thing that I've just done, so that when I come back to it, I'm a little more distant from it, and I've got a better chance of seeing the many, many flaws that are frequently present.
Because I tend to have 2 things on because I've just gone back to I've just started actually writing the next fantasy novel for Orbit, which is not a Bone Ships one, a completely new thing. But at the same time, I'm going forward and reworking a crime novel that I wrote that's set in America on instructions for my. Yes, Katie, there is a new thing. I can't say much about it, but I like that. I like having 2 things and 2 voices in my head. I find it helps me write, especially when.
How much are you reworking your American novel? Because I bloody loved that. Although I did make some points, didn't I?
Yeah. What Ed said was basically it was too violent for the American market.
What?
Well, he's well. Did he say that? He said, "What sort of American crime do you like?" And I said, "No Exit Press, who I really like." And he said, "I can see that they're quite niche." And he kind of hinted that if I wanted to go bigger, it had to be less, not gory, kind of less about, just less. I can't find the word because I'm a professional writer. What he said was it's based in Las Vegas. Las Vegas is all about how it looks, and your main character, it's all about what you cannot see in her. And he said, I think you've missed a metaphor. And when he said that, I thought, oh my God, you're right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can talk about it later, Scott. But basically, I'm making it less sweary and less bloody. Is what I'm doing at the moment.
Vegas is a really weird place. I spent time there for a while, on a couple of occasions for different reasons. And
is it because
if you're
a gangster, Stephen?
that was it. Yeah, and it's such a two-faced city of two faces. If you're there for the tourism, and obviously I was to an extent because it was there and you kind of had to, you've got to be running up the wrong way up an escalator at 4:00 in the morning, pissed out of your head, looking for somewhere that will sell you a steak, right? Then it's one thing. But if you're, in fact, it's a city of three faces, really. Although you don't really see the third face very much. If you're living there outside of the Strip, it's a completely different place. And actually, the third face is a military side of it because it's right next to and largely surrounded by Nellis Air Force Base, the home of Area 51.
See, I've toured a lot of Vegas via Google Maps, and it is weird. It's such a strange city, you're right, and it has all these tunnels underneath it, which is what interested me. And I didn't know about that. They're like just like flood tunnels and running underneath Vegas, and the homeless people live in them. And that was kind of what. And actually, I stole the idea from Jason Arnott, who we'll have on at some point. Do you know that Jason Arnott thing, Scott?
That particular book, I don't think I've read.
It's not. It's a work in progress.
It's the one that, yeah. I know the one you mean.
Yeah, but we can't talk about it. But yeah, and
so many secrets.
Yes, but I had to email him and say, I'm intending on stealing this idea from you. Is that okay? And he said, of course, he would sue me into the ground if I did. And I did it because that's what you do to your mates. But yeah, I'm fascinated by Vegas. And my agent reckoned he could get me to go out there and stay with an ex-member of Bros.
Oh, you must. You must.
I was so tempted. But,
that would be so good. Yeah, seriously, yes, make that happen.
Then COVID hit, so who knows? Look, Fiddles, he wants to know more about people living under Vegas. Yeah, well, it is an actual thing. At the most self-absorbed, Alicia, Southern California. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm scaling back one novel to make it more commercial. That's basically what I'm doing, Scott. Is I'm making it less bloody, just more commercial.
Okay. I'm browsing No Exit's page, and one of their authors is a big fan of my dad, and just made contact. So I might be able to get you in to talk to her about what it's like to work for No Exit.
Oh, I really they do it. They have what's his face? Edward Bunker is a No Exit Press author. His stuff is just wonderful and terrifying. Because he's an author he was Mr. Pink in Reservoir Dogs.
Okay.
And he was an actual gangster. And there's a book called Little Boy Blue, which is a thinly fictionalized account of his actual life. And it's just terrifying. But I recommend reading it. It's worth doing.
So, Stephen, all these various pseudonyms that you've had, were they all because publishers approached you and asked you to write things and you came up with the pseudonym to meet this new piece of work? Or was that just what you decided to do?
Mostly it was a bit of a combination of the two. So Nathan Hawke was that. I was asked whether I wanted to do some slightly different fantasy by my publisher Gollancz at the time. They wanted someone to write some more sort of David Gemmell type swords and sorcery type fantasy, which wasn't what I was doing. It's Hawk with an E. That's right. And so we sort of came up with a different name for that, so that no one would get confused and think that it was going to be, I don't know, would have dragons in it. Maybe we'll be disappointed when it didn't have dragons in it.
It's a good name, though.
Yeah.
And then, well, the historical and the crime ones, so those were novels that I kind of went off and did those on my own bat, with various amounts of encouragement from my agent. Oh yeah, you should. If you want to do that, you should do it. S.J. Deas was really not much of a pseudonym.
No, that was
not really.
Yeah.
S.K. Sharp. Yeah, I don't know why that had to be a pseudonym. The agent and publishers thought that it was a good idea, but it was so removed from and so obviously nothing to do with the kind of stuff I'd been doing before that I don't think there was any danger of anyone getting confused and going and buying their cozy little crime novel and going, oh yes, I really like that. Let's see what else this guy's done. Oh, it's got dragons on the front, but I'm sure it's still a crime novel, really. Readers are a bit more astute than that.
See, I do you really, looking back on it, do you really feel you needed all those pseudonyms? Do you think you could have published them all as yourself and just in the front of the book just said, history book spy, fantasy book spy, crime book spy?
Yes, yeah, and frankly, all these pseudonyms they just get really cumbersome because obviously you need a social media presence for when you as an author. You can't come out as a new author without having a Twitter feed and a Facebook and an Instagram and a blog and everything. And then you go, well, hang on a minute, I've already got one of those. No, but that's under the wrong name. You need a whole new set. And after a bit, it's like, fuck off. I can't. Yeah, I've spent my entire life managing fictional social media feeds and not writing any books. That doesn't work.
My friend Lou Morgan, she had 2 writing names and 2 Twitter accounts, and I was told off at one point for talking to her as Lou on her other Twitter account, and then she recently merged them but only after the books under a pseudonym had become sufficiently successful that she and her publisher, I think they said you can get away with it now, and so she merged them. So maybe you could do a merger.
Well, that is what I did with Nathan Hawke fairly quickly, because that was just tedious. I mean, come on, they're fantasy, and there was no great effort to hide it after the first 6 months. I never really bothered with the social media feed for S.K. Sharp. That was just, I didn't even know where to start with that, because all my contacts are genre, science fiction, fantasy. I don't know where you'd even start with engaging with the crime readership, which is probably why the book sank without a trace, really. And Sam Peters got killed off fairly quickly as well as a. He has I'll respond on Twitter to direct messages, but basically the account says go read the real me. I'm not doing with this multiple social media feeds anymore. So I don't recommend it actually. You need a good reason for it because it comes with a lot of unexpected overhead.
So Katie has asked, why is Stephen Deas my dad or responsible for me as I put it in the thing? It's because Mrs. Deas read a novel I wrote and gave it to Stephen, and then got Stephen to read it and gave it to him via his agent. That's the short version of it.
Something like that.
Reckon? Yeah.
Because your first agent was my agent at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I know you moved. You moved. Who are you with now?
I'm with Ed Wilson of Johnson Alcock.
Yeah, well, so just as well, because my agent decided to stop being an agent and just sold us all.
Yeah, well, he canned me, but.
Oh, right.
so I sent him the book that became Age of Assassins, and he said, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is this is surprisingly good, which was lovely wording. And he said, the bad news is I'm going to have to let you go because I'm downsizing a little. But he did kind of... I gave him a list of agents I was going to approach, and he advised me to approach Ed Wilson. He said, I think you'll get along with him. and that was extreme. It was worth meeting Rob for that on its own because I really like Ed. I really get along with it. It makes me laugh. Tells me to shut up sometimes when I'm whining about stuff I can't do. Alicia said agents sell their authors to other agents. Do you want to?
Well, it's not really. No, they can't. They don't. Not really. He for basically for personal reasons, he basically had to quit agenting, and so rather than just tell all his clients, by the way, I'm quitting agenting, you don't have an agent anymore. He basically went out and approached other agents and said, I've got this client list and I'm giving up I'm exiting the industry. Do you want them? Which I think it's, I don't know exactly how it worked, but that's kind of how it came across.
I was really surprised because for the people that don't know, what happens is an agent sells your book and they get 15%. And I thought of everything you earn from that book from that point onwards. And I thought they got that ad infinitum. But I didn't know that if you stopped agenting, the income stops then as well.
I'm not sure what the arrangement is. I mean, presumably, I don't think it does. I think he could have just said, right, I'm not your agent anymore because I'm quitting, and he would still have been fully entitled to the proceeds for all the books that he had done the deals for. Yeah, it would. So I don't know what the financial side of this is, but he did more than was necessary in going out and finding another agent to take on his client list, so that we had sort of continuity of representation, and we didn't suddenly have, like, I don't know how many of us there were, 12 odd genre authors running around for agents all of a sudden.
He was a good chap, so I really liked Rob, even though he canned me, which obviously an error. But I really liked him. He was really, really upfront with it. And I think he was very good at manuscript doctoring.
Oh, yeah.
I think
that was definitely a strength he had.
Yeah,
I shall miss that.
Yeah, I think he'd have. I'm surprised he never became an editor. I think he would have excelled at it. I think he would have been genuinely brilliant.
Yeah, I would say he did a much more thorough job of editing the manuscripts that I submitted via him than any editor ever did. Perhaps because he'd already done that job.
Yeah, he was really, really good at that. But sorry, I was just reading what Fiddles put about being a criminal mindermast. We've run over our hour, but I'm gonna. I don't have. It's a bit sad because usually at this point I would surprise Kit by mentioning the Writeopolis playlist and asking Kit to tell me what his song that he wants to choose for it is. But he's not here, so I can't surprise him. So I'll have to surprise Scott instead.
Okay, because I've been listening to it.
We should be telling Stephen to be thinking of a song to add to the Writeopolis that I will forget to add to the Writeopolis.
Yes.
If I'm honest. But
no, you won't.
I'm going to choose, because I've been listening to it on repeat for the last 2 days, a song from, I've already mentioned it once, the soundtrack to Bo Burnham's Netflix special, Inside. No, I'm not on a percentage. And I'm going to choose How the World Works.
Bo Burnham.
How the World Works.
Be on Spotify?
It is on Spotify.
Okay.
And you should listen to that, RJ. I think it will amuse you.
Okay. And Stephen, are you ready to go with it, or do you want me to go first?
Well, if you're making a playlist, I want you to put. I'm going to go for Tool's Pneuma, because that's Mila's song from the Moonsteel Crown.
Is that Pneuma?
Oh, very good. Yes.
Yeah, that's off the latest album.
It is, yeah.
Which I constantly fight with my agent about, because my agent is a huge Tool fan, and I quite like. Well, I like a lot of Tool, but I thought that I wasn't impressed with that album. That Steve's gonna hate me now because I think.
Well, not particularly. I find individual tracks very, very hit and miss. I'm going to get shouted at by my wife now, who loves everything they do. But there are a couple. There are a handful of songs they've done which are in my sort of top 20 permanent playlist. and then the rest, many of the rest, just leave me cold. I don't know why.
I think they can either be amazing or really self-indulgent.
Yeah, I think that's about how I feel about them.
But
Numa for me is one of the amazing ones.
Yeah.
Your mileage may vary, but it just hit all the right notes somehow for Myla.
Do you know do you know my Tool story?
I don't.
I went to see Tool in Manchester, looking very rock and roll as I do, and we were waiting for the band to come on, and I had a lolly, and I'd finished my lolly, so I was chewing the lolly stick and being really rock and roll, and all my friends were like, they've given up on their long hair and everything. There's only me left that kind of still leather jacket and everything, and I was sauntering off to go to the toilets, and when a bouncer stepped in front of me, and he looked at the lolly stick, and he said to me, "No smoking in here, son." I looked at him and went, "I'm not, it's a lolly stick." And he went, "I don't care what it is, fucking put it out." And I kind of lifted it up and went, "It's a lolly stick." And he went, "Put it out or you're leaving." So I had to drop the lolly stick on the floor and then pretend to stub it out with my foot, by which point I was feeling a lot less rock and roll. And then I started to walk off, and he just grabbed me by the back of my neck and pulled me back, and he went, "Pick it up, put it in the bin." So I was, that's what happened to me at a Tool concert. The band were excellent, but I got that lovely anecdote.
That lolly stick sounds like it's the name of a fake drug from that Chris Morris Brass Eye episode. It's not a cigarette. It's lolly stick.
No, you're not taking lolly stick in here, man. No.
The next album will have a 12-minute song on it now titled "Lolly Stick."
My track is I've been going. It's really weird. Somebody said, I don't know if I've said this before. Somebody said that kids now don't have the same ideas of music having a time that we do. Like the Beatles were music for my dad when I was growing up. The kids now don't see that because they can access all music at all time, and they have no information about it. They just know if they like it or not. And my boys discovered a song called Gullible's Travels by Soul Asylum, from before they got famous, because it was on a playlist of mine that he loves. And I went back and listened to the album. It's called Soul Asylum and the Horse They Rode In on it. And there's a track on it called Nice Guys Don't Get Paid, and it's just superb. So that is my choice for this week. And then of course I hated them after that because they had a big hit, and I was a massive hipster. But that album before they were famous is good. He said like a complete git. I'm just reading the chat. Was the bouncer lost?
I do feel for sort of young musicians trying to forge their path nowadays. Both my boys have decided to take up the electric guitar over the last few years, and what they're listening to and what they're playing is all the shit I used to listen to when I was their age and a bit older. They'll sometimes introduce me to a quote new band, and it's okay, they're new to me, but that's because my sort of understanding of music stopped about 30 years ago. So this new band this song's 20 years old, you know that, right?
We went to a gig for the first time in ages last week. In fact, we came home a day early from our holidays to go to a gig because it's my son's guitar teacher's band were playing, and they're probably going to be huge. They're being courted by 3 major record labels at the moment, and they're called Yard Act. And I can just say, check them out. They're absolutely fantastic. Kind of like The Fall is probably the easiest note to them, but they've got a real sense of humour about them, and it was properly great. Oh, well done, Weird Days. We nearly missed something out, Scott. Very important.
The text.
Yeah, which is a phrase Kit invented.
What?
And that is a fact, as everybody knows. Weird Days. Get us to be professional. What are you doing? We have a theory that Kit completely made up and didn't get from anywhere else, that there are texts that we all have in our head that are always there, and they are part of everything we do. Like I have Watership Down is one of mine, and Scott has
Doctor Who, Terrence Dick's Doctor Who books.
yes. So what are your texts that were just there at the right moment for you and kind of are stuck in your head?
Oh, well, now you're asking.
Yeah, that would have been a good one to ask earlier and come back to. We should try that one day, Scott.
Mm.
Yeah. Give people a chance.
Books that sort of blew my mind at the time is what you're asking about, and that are sort of that I still remember. So the earliest one I can remember that did that, I think, is Swallows and Amazons.
Ah, good call.
Yeah, Watership Down is definitely one.
Mm.
I know this is desperately dull, and I'm just going to just curl up in a ball of cliche here, but yeah, Lord of the Rings. I'm afraid when I actually got it, I failed at the first attempt some point in my teens, but later in my teens when I got it, when I tried again, it worked. And similarly, Dune, tried that too young, but when it worked, it really worked.
Did you skip all the singing in Lord of the Rings?
Well, okay, possibly can we gloss over Tom Bombadil? Yeah, even now. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Wow, that's a title I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm old, you see.
Me too, clearly.
I'm only aware of that book from other people talking about it. I've never read it, but I know of it.
Steppenwolf. Joseph Conrad's The Secret Agent, but for a very weird reason, because I mostly hated it.
Mm.
But it did this really weird thing for me, and I imagine that this was only this is not going to be a common take. I mostly hated it because the characters all felt like cartoon cardboard cutouts through nearly all of the book, and yet somehow in the last 10% they suddenly popped into 3 dimensions, and everything was all of a sudden I'd been laughing at these people, and now suddenly it was all horrible. So that kind of stuck in my mind, and it's a thing I try to do now sometimes, is to make a character look like a caricature, and then quietly build them up until they and try and make them suddenly pop into 3 dimensions, so you suddenly realize that everything you were feeling about them is really horrible, and you feel bad for feeling it. I don't know if I've ever succeeded in that. But,
I'll tell you a text that sprung into my head, and I realised that it really affected me when I read it. Was In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. We read it at school because people were on about books you were forced to read at school and hated. And I remember being forced to read that and loving it, and everybody else hated it.
I've never read that.
It's really good. It's properly... He gets
Wasn't it apparently sort of almost co-written by Harper Lee?
Possibly, because it's very different to his other stuff, which I don't like at all.
Hmm.
And apparently he had a massive crush on one of them as well. Which possibly I can understand. But it's a really good book. He said on the podcast about writing. I'm a bit spaced out tonight. I don't know why. I'm properly tired. If I appear... I don't know if you can tell. But yeah, and it just popped into my head, did Truman Capote. And are you going to just tell us a bit for the people that know about your latest book, Stephen? Because we're running up to the end now. So
yes, you should take the opportunity to plug.
Before we plug, Kit's really angry with me and Scott if we don't say, please join the Patreon.
Please join the Patreon.
Please join the Patreon.
Please.
So you obviously don't have to, because the point is we do this for free. But we would Kit would quite like us to, because he's a real slave driver, isn't he, Scott? He's a monster. Basically.
Join us. Join us.
But when we reach a point that we can pay to put it on podcasters, we will then, there'll be more of us. And the more of us, and all you Writeopolians will be able to lord it over the new people. So
in our republic, our glorious republic.
Our glorious republic, where you will be more equal than everybody else.
I think your microphone keeps cutting out, RJ.
Does it? Oh, that's a bit
at moments of high emotion, you just go silent.
Oh, maybe that's the tiredness. But anyway, Stephen, plug your book, Stephen.
Okay, so the book that I've got out at the moment is The Moonsteel Crown. It's out from Angry Robot, and it's basically three ne'er-do-wells, one of whom is a failed priest who's been kicked out for meddling with things he shouldn't meddle with, one of whom's rather a good burglar who's just not very clever with his money, and one of whom is a rather nifty sword monk on the run from having done something rather bad. And they get roped into a heist that goes terribly wrong and lands them in a whole load of hot water, which they then spend the rest of the book trying to get themselves out of, and largely failing due to their own, undermining each other and stabbing each other accidentally in the back, or sometimes purposefully in the back.
And it's very good. It's had a lot of good reviews.
It has had a lot of good reviews.
A lot of good reviews. And has a lovely cover. Angry Robot have been killing it with covers recently.
Yeah, it's weird. I didn't like that cover when I first saw it on a flat screen, but on the book it's great.
Yeah.
So I just don't know shit about covers. I think that's what we've come to the conclusion of.
Yeah, I discovered that with my first books, because I didn't like the covers of my first books. And my agent told me to shut up. He said, you don't work in marketing.
I'm going to, if I may, plug another little project that I'm slightly working on. It's not really my project, but I've been working for a little while on a sort of helping along a Dutch project for a post-apocalyptic Robin Hood story, which currently is being developed as a TV series, a novel, a podcast, a web series. I don't know how many different things they're trying to do all at once. It's quite ridiculous. But you cannot fault the amount of work that's gone into this. And they are currently launching a bit of a fundraising campaign to try and create a proper sizzle reel for the project in hope of getting some sort of interest from someone who actually can do something. It's a great little project. It feels like someone took Robin Hood and smashed it together with Into the Badlands and added a bit of magic. It's a little batshit. It's right up my street.
Has it got a name?
The name of the project is just simply Hood. I'm going to put a link to the website in the chat, though.
Do it.
My mate Paul Kane wrote a post-apocalyptic Robin Hood trilogy where the character was called Hood.
And Stephen Lawhead has also written a book called Hood.
In fact, you're the second writer I know to say the phrase post-apocalyptic Robin Hood to me in respect of an oncoming project within 3 days.
Oh my god!
There must be something in the air, because the thing that I'm doing for my next Orbit book is loosely based on Robin Hood as well. So
it's because there isn't a good Robin Hood at the moment. We need a good Robin Hood. Every generation has their Sherlock Holmes. Every generation has their.
Oh, Scott, you've gone. Right. I'm going to tell Craig to stop recording. We can give Steve a round of applause for Stephen, everybody, and everybody's been wonderful in the chat. Thank you for
having me.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for being had, Stephen, as well. But it sounds wrong, doesn't it?
Thanks for listening. Writeopolis records alternating Sundays via Discord. To take part in future shows, visit patreon.com/Writeopolis podcast to find our server details. You can also support the show there in return for Discord perks and early access. If you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and spread the word. Thanks again. Writeopolis, we're not just gonna kid it. Writeopolis, we're not just gonna kid, yeah.